What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deeper Dive CFB. Back with another video after a great week of college football. Week 5, not too many key matchups, but I thought it was some good competition. Thank y'all for watching. Really appreciate that. Just starting to get into this, 1 week through having this YouTube. First video was last Sunday after week 4, and now getting to recap week 5. Start to build more of a consistent schedule. For right now at least, dealing with baseball and all that. Probably putting out 2 videos a week, one recapping and then one kind of previewing the games, via college pick'em. I might start throwing in my own games in there. But once again, guys, thank y'all for watching, and let's get right into it, guys. And this time, I'm going to go conference by conference. So we're going to start with the ACC, guys. And I think probably the biggest storyline from week 5 was, Clemson. Clemson, supposed to be the unanimous #1 team in the country after last year, and they were down to a 2-point conversion. It was 21-20 at the end of the game. North Carolina had a chance to win it. I thought North Carolina came out with the right mentality. Really tried to chew clock in that game. And they did a really good job. And they came out, gunslinging early. Sam Howell, true freshman, who, if you don't know, was committed to Florida State, and right when Mac Brown got hired, he flipped him over to North Carolina, and he's already had a big impact. And first drive of the game, there's a long touchdown, and I think right then, it was kind of the same thoughts we've had all along this year. It's, man, I mean, when is Clemson going to turn it around? I mean, they just annihilated Bama in the championship game last year, and now it seems like they're playing down to their competition. So I mean, North Carolina came out really strong, but I thought Trevor Lawrence made enough plays. I think the big thing around him this year is turnovers. 2 picks against A&M, but he didn't have any picks. He was 18 of 30. I mean, just had over 200 yards, and so I think on the surface it doesn't look bad, but it's just not the Trevor Lawrence that we were expecting to see. So I mean, I think the real question is, are they on a championship hangover? I think so far the answer is yes. The good thing is they have a bye week to figure it out, and then they'll have to go play Florida State, who's their rival. And I know Florida State is not really at the typical Florida State level, but I mean, Florida State's won 2 in a row. They bounced back, and maybe Florida State's starting to figure it out. And I think that's a game where people are going to just say, okay, Clemson's going to figure it out off the bye week, but they got to prove that, because we've been giving them excuses this whole first month of the year. And at some point, they don't have the strength of schedule to lose a game to a bad team. I mean, the ACC is bad this year. It's bad. There's no other, in my opinion, there's no other legit team besides Clemson. So if they do drop a game like they have in years past, they don't have that excuse to fall back on. Well, we're in the ACC, so we can afford to lose a game. It's not the case this year. So hopefully Clemson can figure things out, because they're starting to become like we viewed Notre Dame in the past. Notre Dame not being in a conference, they don't give as much leeway. Clemson is in the ACC, but like I said, it's down. So Clemson really needs to figure it out. Next topic in the ACC, Virginia, fell short against Notre Dame. I picked this and called my college pick'em. I thought Notre Dame looked really good against Georgia. It's one of those games. There's no moral victories, but I think certainly we saw the caliber team Notre Dame was. I thought they took care of Virginia, and Virginia was supposed to be kind of that next level behind Clemson, and I think you saw Notre Dame handle them easily. It kind of shows where the ACC is at right now. But 2 teams that are emerging, Duke and Wake Forest. I mean, Wake Forest is undefeated, and I was listening to the ESPN post-game show. I can't remember which game it was, but it was talking about how everybody on that team, they're just laying low. People aren't talking about them, but they're just winning. They're stacking these wins now. It's still, I still wouldn't call them a very great team. But I mean, they're 5-0, and I think they're taking advantage of some of the weakness in the ACC. At the end of the day, you have to tip your cap to Wake Forest. They're finding ways to win. They're 5-0, and who knows where they'll be at the end of the year. And then Duke, guys. I mean, Duke did not show out well against Alabama week 1, lost 42-3. But since then, they put up 45, 41, and 45. I mean, they blew out Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech hiring Justin Fuente from Memphis. I mean, supposed to kind of get that program back where they need to be, back to where Frank Beamer led them. And I mean, Duke just annihilated them. I mean, it's 45-10. Duke looks like they're starting to figure things out a little bit, and possibly emerging as another kind of not great team in the ACC, but a team that can kind of take advantage of a weak year and maybe put together 8, 9, 10 wins. And then, guys, to cap it off in the ACC, had to mention Pitt. We mentioned them in our previous 2 videos. I mean, didn't look. They're just very they just find a way to keep it close, I guess. I mean, Pat Narduzzi always likes to make it interesting, and they pull out a very decisive 17-14 win against Delaware. So wanted to shout them out, guys. Now onto the Big Ten. Definitely one of the main headlines of the week. Ohio State just manhandles Nebraska, and I think this brings up a bigger point because people have hyped up Nebraska from the start, and I think maybe we're starting to see. I mentioned this in my last video. Maybe we're starting to see. I mean, look, Scott Frost turned around UCF in 2 years, and yeah, I mean that he deserves all the credit in the world. But that's not going to be able to be replicated everywhere. And Nebraska was 4-8 last year, and I think a lot of people forgot that because they started off so bad last year, and they started to pick it up at the end of the year. And Adrian Martinez started to become a hot name as a true freshman quarterback, but they haven't proven at all this year that they were going to be able to compete in this game. I mean, barely escaped South Alabama in week 1. I mean, and then as the season started to progress, blew a lead at Colorado, which isn't a bad loss, but it was the way they lost it. Definitely not just teams that are going to be successful don't blow those leads. That's simple as that. And then last week, barely beating Illinois, 42-38. I think the only takeaway I had from that game is it was close, but maybe their offense was going to put together something against Ohio State, and that's why I had them putting up 35. I didn't think they were going to be able to stop Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins and all those weapons they have on offense, but I thought they'd maybe be able to keep it close with Adrian Martinez. And one thing, if you watch the game, is kind of cool. Scott Frost whipped out all the old tricks. I mean, it looked like the offense that he would have run when he was the quarterback there. I mean, they were running the I formation, like triple option. It was pretty cool, but I mean, it wasn't going to work forever. I mean, 48-7. This game got way overhyped. Should have never been game day. I mean, poor Nebraska fans. I mean, all that hype. Maybe they knew in the back of their minds after watching last year, like, guys, we're 4-8. I mean, thank you for all the attention, but I don't think we're ready to compete with Ohio State yet, and it certainly showed. So I think that was my biggest takeaway from the Big Ten, maybe in the country. All right, next, guys. We had to mention it. I personally don't think it means too much, but Michigan does get back to playing good offense. They beat Rutgers 52-0. I personally, like I said, I don't think it means that much because they should be blowing a team like Rutgers out. Shea Patterson did look pretty good though. Both with his arm and his feet. It's something that he's really struggled with this year. People have been speculating maybe he's hurt because he just seems to be overthrowing balls. Just doesn't look like himself. Dylan McCaffrey got hurt, so maybe he felt a little more comfortable knowing that it's his job. He's just going to go into the game and he's going to be the guy. And he responded well. They played a little better, but Michigan still a lot of tough games ahead for them. They host Iowa this week, which I'm sure we'll talk about it in the preview video. But I think that's a game I might pick Iowa in, even in the Big House. I mean, I think Iowa's definitely looked better this year up to this point. Went on the road and beat Iowa State. They just look good. Iowa's just a really clean football team. They remind me a lot of Wisconsin, maybe a little bit on a little lower level than Wisconsin, but that same type of brand of football. And we saw how that worked out against Michigan. They got to go to Penn State. They'll host Notre Dame. They got to play Michigan State. I mean, it is certainly not in the barn for Michigan. I mean, tip your cap that they figured it out against Rutgers. But, now we'll see if they can start to, figure it out against some of these really good teams. And on that note, guys, Iowa, Penn State, and Minnesota all undefeated in the Big Ten. Like I mentioned, Iowa's looked really good to this point. Beat Iowa State and just won the games they're supposed to. Penn State, a team that we haven't talked about much just because they don't have that. They don't have Trace McSorley. They don't have Saquon Barkley, but they're a team that's starting to pile together wins as well. And then Minnesota, I mean, they've made games look really interesting this year, but they find a way to beat Purdue, and they're undefeated. So but we'll see if Minnesota can start to compete with Wisconsin and Iowa in that Big Ten West. PJ Fleck, now in his third year, maybe he's starting to turn that corner. Very has a lot of cliches, row the boat and all that, but maybe he's starting to turn the corner, and they're not winning, pretty, but they're winning, and that's all that matters. All right, guys, now on to the Big 12. Big story from this one. I mean, Oklahoma takes care of Texas Tech. I mean, Jalen Hurts looks the part for sure. He found Charleston Rambo on a few deep balls that look so pretty. I don't know if you saw this, but he's kind of developed this mantra where he's literally Nick Saban 2.0. I mean, right after the game, he wins 55-16 against Texas Tech. Should be pretty satisfied, but we've seen this really after every game he's played. He's taken it to a new level on never satisfied, and he's in the weight room doing medicine ball stuff. Who knows if that's legit or not? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because he's balling on the field. You know, if that's what works for him, you know, he doesn't like to really celebrate his success because, you know, it seems like he's a perfectionist. You know, a lot of these guys like to go out, you know, celebrate and kind of delight in their hard work. But maybe he's built different, and you know, maybe that's what makes him really good. So at the end of the day, Oklahoma just rolls over Texas Tech. This game wasn't close. I think Oklahoma's a really dangerous team, obviously. Like I mentioned, guys, I mean, OU, they've got Hurts, they got a pretty good, you know, backfield too. Kennedy Brooks, Trey Sermon, really good receiving core, obviously. CeeDee Lamb, Charleston Rambo, and Hazelwood, the freshman, looked pretty good too. So it'd be, you know, it's hard to say because they haven't really been challenged yet. But you know, this could be, you know, on the same level as they were with Baker and Kyler, if not maybe a little bit better. You know, maybe Jalen Hurts does take that next step, and you know, maybe they do win the third straight Heisman. Something to watch for also. You know, Derek King from Houston announces that he's going to redshirt the rest of the years to have one more year of eligibility left. Wouldn't be surprised if OU got him. You know, maybe it becomes this cycle of, you know, just getting direct, you know, transfer quarterbacks. You can come in for a year, you know, dominate, and then go on to the NFL. That'll be something that we can, you know, talk about much later. But other news in the Big 12, Baylor, guys, moves to 4-0. I picked Iowa State to win that game. I watched the whole game. It was 20-0 after the third quarter. Baylor, you know, Iowa State really got off to a slow start, but once they started to find their rhythm, I really liked what I saw from them. And it just sucks to see a team like Iowa State with, you know, a really good quarterback in Brock Purdy, you know, be 2-2 right now. But at the end of the day, you just can't start off that slow. 20-0 after the third quarter, but they really started to turn it on. You know, Baylor had a great last drive. Charlie Brewer is a really gutsy quarterback. You know, made some good throws, and they ended up kicking a field goal to win it. You know, Baylor, you know, really seems to be recovering pretty well from, you know, the whole Art Briles scandal. Obviously, that really plagued them for 2017. They went 1-11, but you know, hats off to Matt Rule. He's done a great job. You know, to you know, take a team that was really in disarray after the whole scandal that was, you know, the Art Briles thing. He takes over. They go 1-11, but they did start to turn a corner last year. You know, they went 7-6, finished with a winning record like that. Very impressive, and now they're 4-0. Who knows what they can do? You know, still got to play Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Texas, OU. So it's not like they're gonna. I don't see them competing for a Big 12 championship this year, but definitely an impressive win to beat Iowa State, who, you know, people had, you know, right behind Texas and OU coming into the year. So big win for Baylor. And then, you know, Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace lead Oklahoma State to a win over Kansas State. I picked them to win. You know, Spencer Sanders, very lucky to have, you know, two playmakers like that. I mean, Chuba Hubbard had over 200 yards on the ground. Just a dominant game. He's one of the. I think he's starting to get noticed more because he's put up such good numbers this year. But you know, Texas. I was at the game, like I said last week. Texas did a good job with him. 37 carries, you know, 120 something yards. So you know, they kept feeding the rock to him, and Texas did a good job. But you know, other than that game, where I mean, he still had 120 yards. He's just been dominant. And not only did, you know, Hubbard have 296 yards on the ground, but, you know, Tylan Wallace, one of the best receivers in the nation, you know, 145 yards receiving. You know, like I said, Spencer Sanders very lucky to have, you know, two playmakers like that with him. And Oklahoma State improves to 4-1, and I think they're a team that can be competitive. You know, you got athletes like that. They can compete with OU. They can compete with Texas, as they've shown. A very sneaky team to watch out of the Big 12 this year. All right, guys, now on to the Pac-12. As you'll see, as I've, you know, made clear in my first few videos, just an unpredictable conference in all aspects, and that showed again this week. You know, there no more undefeated teams left in the Pac-12. Friday night, Arizona State goes into Cal and beats the Golden Bears. You know, one note, you know, Chase Garber's their quarterback, who had really, you know, started to develop pretty well throughout the year. He went down, and they just looked in disarray after that. You know, Garber's injury definitely had an impact on the game, but still, I mean, it's only week 5 and no more undefeated teams left. You know, in every other major conference, there's multiple. Definitely more than 2. And, you know, Pac-12 through week 5, it's week 5. I mean, you're playing non-conference games. You're just getting into conference play, and there's none left. I thought that was really crazy. You know, Utah. Maybe I was wrong about Utah, guys. I threw a little bit of shade towards them and kind of the hype they got coming into the year. They look good. I mean, Tyler Huntley, the quarterback, 21-30. 334 yards and 4 total touchdowns. You know, I had 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe they do come out of the South and, you know, play Washington, Oregon, or Cal in the Pac-10 championship, and maybe they do make a Rose Bowl. I mean, I was really impressed. You know, how they were able to stop an offense like Washington State. You know, has, you know, the leader of the air raid, Mike Leach, hold them to 13 points. That's very impressive. You know, I was very impressed by Utah, and I'll own that. Maybe I was wrong about that, but I think the bigger story out of this game, definitely the funnier one. Mike Leach. Like I said, he always provides a good soundbite, and last night was no different, man. He was angry after the game, and I'll put a link of some of his tirades in the past in the description below. I remember I'll put last night's and then one from when he was at Tech. He's basically going off on his team for being entitled. Same story last night. Like I said, I'll put the link below, but he called his team fat, dumb, happy, and entitled. Sell it to him straight, I guess. But he was not happy with Washington State, and they just look kind of, they just lack competitiveness last night. I mean, you obviously the conditions were a big part of it, and Utah was a tougher team. I think he was right. We saw that, but I thought that was funny that Mike Leach would say that about his team. But I also kind of like it. I mean, if your guys aren't going to go out there and compete, I mean, he had Minshew last year, who was, Gardner Minshew, who's now the starting quarterback for the Jaguars. Kind of reminded me of a Baker Mayfield type, a very big leader of the team, very fiery guy. They don't seem to have that this year. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And then the last story of the Pac-12, Washington takes care of USC. Big story of the game was Jacob Eason. I thought he managed the game pretty well, but it was actually Salvin Ahmed, their running back. He had 153 and one touchdown on the ground. My big question coming into this game was, how was Matt Fink going to play? He didn't play bad, but he had 3 picks, and you just can't turn the ball over 3 times on the road. Washington looked really good. I think they're going to be right in it with Oregon at the end of the year. I think Cal, right now I would say it's Oregon, Washington, and it's Oregon 1A and 1B in that Pac-12 North, and then Cal is right below them. But I think Washington definitely looked the part, and if they could win with Jake Browning, who was a very good competitor, a very good game manager. If they can win with him, now they got Jacob Eason, who is a great recruit, has proved he can win against SEC defenses. If he can start to keep improving his game, I think they could be a very dangerous team to watch out of the Pac-12. All right, guys, the SEC. Biggest storyline of that is Auburn. Auburn takes care of Mississippi State, 56 to 23. I think Bo Nix each week has gotten much better. Against Oregon week 1, it was like, man, Auburn just survived. Nix had below a 50% completion percentage, which is not good. But like I mentioned in the last video, you just saw his moxie in that game. And I think now that he's starting to get his feet wet in college football, I mean, he's only a true freshman, guys. That's why we just don't see that many true freshmen play. And the guys you do see play are studs. Trevor Lawrence, Jake Fromm. Bo Nix is starting to, become one of those guys. He looked really good last night, guys. He was 16 to 21, 335 yards and 2 touchdowns, guys. I mean, that's impressive. Mississippi State, obviously not what they used to be. I mean, it was only 5 years ago that they had Dak Prescott and they were ranked number 1 in the country, but they've fallen far from that. But it's still a big win for Auburn, and they're heading into Gainesville next week. It's a top 10 matchup. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go through, study these games before I make picks. But I think my early pick is I'm gonna go with Auburn in that one because I think Bo Nix is only getting better. And yeah, guys, I mean, I was really impressed by this game. And guys, Alabama just doing what they're supposed to do. Now, if the AP poll came out today, they're now number 1. They overtake Clemson. I'm not going to mention the AP poll because I really don't think it matters at this point. It's not the poll that's going to be used to determine the playoff anyway. So rankings are there for a reason, but there's no reason to discuss it at this point. But just a note, they are the number 1 team in the country now. They just dominated Ole Miss. Ole Miss kept this game close. Ole Miss is winning after a quarter. It was 10-7. They went with John Rice Plumlee, who came in late in the game last week against Cal, and almost let a great comeback win. But once the dust settled in a little bit, Alabama just completely dominated this game. Tua 418 and 6 touchdowns. And how about Devontae Smith, guys? The second quarter from Devontae Smith. Tua had no pressure on him. He just found Devontae Smith time and time again. Devontae Smith had 11 receptions for 274 yards and 5 touchdowns. And a lot of that came in the second quarter. Just a beastly performance from Alabama. They roll, and there's not really much to say here. Alabama's just doing what they've done the last 10 years. They're just Ole Miss will go to Vandy this next week, and that's a must-win game. Matt Luke, I love Matt Luke. I think he's what college football is all about. Matt Luke, the Ole Miss head coach. He played at Ole Miss. He was an assistant at Ole Miss for a long time, but that's going to be a game he needs to win. Vanderbilt's probably, most definitely the worst team in the SEC. that's a game he needs to go win. But I wanted to mention Bama's now -- 1, and for good reason. They've dominated to this point. And guys, last story out of the SEC: Texas A&M barely survives Arkansas, 31-27. Nick Starkel went down for Arkansas. He threw a pick in the red zone. He got trampled by a big lineman. It looked like he hurt his wrist, and he was out for the rest of the game. I do credit Ben Hicks. He was a grad transfer from SMU. He came in and competed well. And, Arkansas was driving at the end of the game to try to win, but just couldn't muster it together. I'm a UT fan, and, I'm really not trying to be biased here, and I'm not. I'm just telling you how it is. I mean, A&M is just – that's just not a good look. And, yes, it's a rivalry game. Rivalry games, it doesn't matter how teams have looked up to that point. They tend to be a little closer. And certainly the Arkansas versus Texas A&M game is close every year. Always a crazy finish. It always seems like Arkansas is just one play away, and it was the same thing this year. But I mean, A&M is just, they're not looking the part. I mean, Kellen Mond, if you just look at the stat sheet, it doesn't look bad, but he just missed too many throws for them to really pull away. I mean, we'll see how A&M does, guys, but they're not making any case at all that they're gonna go beat Georgia, go beat LSU or beat Alabama at home. They're not doing anything to prove to me that's the case right now. But did want to mention that it was one of those early games, probably the best early game of the day. I'm not gonna keep hating on A&M because I'm just gonna give them the fact that it was a rivalry game. But Jimbo Fisher is gonna have to start producing a little bit more. He's making $7.5 million a year, $75 million guaranteed over 10 years. So I mean, he's gonna have to start winning. He's gonna have to start beating Arkansas bad, beating Ole Miss bad, and he's gonna have to start competing with LSU and Alabama, because those programs are not going anywhere. Alabama is not going anywhere. If Alabama's gonna go beat Ole Miss like that, that's only gonna help recruiting for them. Same thing with LSU, and LSU is probably only gonna get better now that they have a good offense under Joe Brady. I think that they're only gonna get better in recruiting and in actually how they do on the field. So I think Jimbo Fisher, he's gonna have to find a way to start selling his program a little better. Guys, next, I just want to mention 2 games from the American Conference. SMU, now number 24 in the nation after defeating South Florida. Shane Buechele, the quarterback, plays his former head coach at Texas, Charlie Strong, and this one wasn't close. But I did want to mention SMU, now 5-0, now in the top 25 for the first time since 1986. That was before they got the death penalty. So it's really good to see a program like that come full circle 33 years later. That it shows you, man, if you cheat, there's going to be consequences. And that program basically had to start from rock bottom, and it's taken them 30 years to get all the way back to where they want to be. A program that is still in a Group of 5 conference, but if they can continue to build, who knows? They have a good basketball program, which helps. Maybe they do get in a maybe in a Big 12. We'll see how conferences align through the next 5 to 10 years. But I did want to mention that, and there's no reason to think that they can't win 10, 11. Who knows? Maybe they go undefeated, and they can be that team from the Group of 5 that makes the New Year's Six Bowl. Something to keep your eye on for sure. They're now ranked, first time since 1986. Very cool story there. And how about Temple, guys? Second Power 5 win of the year. They beat Maryland when Maryland actually looked pretty good. That's fallen off for sure. But they host Georgia Tech this week. I would say pretty confidently that Georgia Tech is the worst Power 5 team that we've seen so far. I mean, just not good. And you have to feel for Jeff Collins. A story of this game is Jeff Collins actually came from Temple. He was the former head coach there, took the Georgia Tech job, and you have to feel for him. Inherited guys who were meant to play the triple option, and now he's starting to spread things out a little bit, and that's something that these guys weren't recruited to do. So you have to feel bad for him. It was 24-2 final. Temple wins, but just wanted to mention 2 Power 5 wins in a year. Pretty good resume there for Temple. Guys, that wraps it up. That's our Week 5 recap. Thank you so much for watching. As I mentioned, guys, it has been a little bit of a struggle, balancing free time with school and baseball. It's really a grind, but I'm starting to get a hold of it a little bit, and I'm looking to put out consistent content. I am looking to build this YouTube page more than my Instagram page, so I'm going to be using my Instagram platform to promote this channel, because I think this is the most effective way to build something like this, especially now in 2019. YouTube is really starting to blow up, so I'm very interested in this, guys. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Please comment, like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And also, one thing I wanted to mention, because after my first video, a lot of people, really up until this weekend were like, man, great first video. I went back to Houston. A lot of my, people that I saw were like, great first video. When's the next one coming out? And I'm like, well, I've come out with one since then. And they're like, huh, I didn't know that. So turn your post notifications on, guys. It's that little bell right by the title. It should be pretty easy to find. Just tap that little bell so you get a notification when I post a video, guys. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, and turn on your post notifications. And if y'all have any questions about anything I said in the video, if y'all want to, maybe contest something I had to say, just comment it below. DM me on Instagram. I'm always looking to talk college football, guys. Very passionate about it, so I'm always willing to talk. Just comment below, DM me if you have anything that you want to talk about. Also, if you have anything that you do want me to, include in these videos, maybe an idea you have, just comment that or DM me. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.